So hi there, everybody. It's just so lovely to be back in Copenhagen. Again, apologies on my pronunciation. I'm from England, Copenhagen. So very excited to be part of this conference. We've heard some super talks already today. And kind of what's funny, but also great, is I'm going to sort of repeat some of the themes that you've already heard. So we heard IKEA this morning. They talked about their tech radar. We are using the same tech radar. We had Jonas just this afternoon. He was mentioning about Dora. So again, more about that later on. My advice to myself and also to yourself is take copious notes, talk to as many people as possible. Try and find those golden nuggets and take them back to your work. You know, try something out. It might just work for you. So this is DevEX and how it drives innovative solutions. So that's me. I'm the EMEA IT transformation lead in Verizon. So what does that mean? I think we're all pretty much on a digital journey. For me, it's always been about better ways of working and how we actually achieve that. Just a little bit about myself and what I'm passionate about. Love my family to bits. There's my crazy arse daughter with a paintbrush. But she seems particularly happy, so that makes me happy. I'm a big sports fan. I support Tottenham. Terrible result yesterday. But again, I thank you, Denmark, for Christian Eriksen, a fantastic player. And please do stay at Tottenham. Don't go to Real Madrid. My background, investment management, IT. I used to work for a company called Schroders in the city. Still love that ebb and flow of the stock market. I'm still very much an active investor, but more so recently with something what we term crowdfunding. I think that sort of that community passion, that whole aspect is really disruptive to the way companies are actually getting funded. And the S logo there, that's one of the companies I've recently invested in, a local firm to me, nice brewing firm called Siren. So hopefully coming to Denmark soon. So, I hope you've all heard of Verizon. We've been a leader in telecoms for decades now. We're Fortune 20, over 130 billion in revenue last year, with over 130,000 employees. We are seriously, seriously big. I hope you also recognize maybe some of those logos up there, those high-impacting logos. Verizon, we're constantly expanding. We're trying to reinvent ourselves. And I would go as far to say it's actually we're purposely disrupting ourselves. We need to improve. We need to stay relevant, and we actually need to survive in this new world order. So as I say, the world is very much changing very, very rapidly. Telecoms now, it's really an enabler. It's not a commodity anymore. We're pivoting towards the Internet of Things, those connected devices. And Verizon, we need to stay ahead in the 5G and software-defined network races. What's kind of cool is we're in the Nordics, so you guys, you get it. You really are tech savvy. You know, you've got 5G test beds springing up all over the place. Prevalent software-defined networks, they're everywhere. I see smart cities coming into being, you know, places like Aarhus. Our CEO, Hans Vestberg, Swedish chap, he talks around the 8 currencies of 5G, whether it be speed, reliability, latency. It all needs to be in balance. You cannot sacrifice one to the detriment of the others. Now, when he was sort of saying these things, I was thinking, this doesn't half sound like DevOps. You can't just have one of these things. So again, more about the sort of linkage there in DevOps, about that sort of holy trinity that I'll talk about later on. When we're going through our transformation, I like to think of it through 3 different lenses: our customers, our partners, and our employees. And for each of these personas, we really do need to give them the right digital tools, and we need to give them what they want, where they want it, and when they need it. So what we generally all do is customers and partners, super focused on those guys, but actually our internal talent, let's actually start there. Let's actually give them the tools. Let's give them the techniques that they want. Or as we like to say in Verizon, actually, why don't we actually drink our own champagne? So what does make Verizon so different? We've talked a little bit about size. Now let's just talk about IT. We have over 2,000 applications. And these are built, run, and maintained by over 10,000 engineers. So again, seriously, seriously big. And as you can imagine, Verizon, it's a sum of multiple business units built up over years and years of sort of mergers, acquisitions, divestments. So guess what? The tools, skill sets, knowledge, it can often seem very, very fragmented, disparate, and sometimes very siloed. So for example, I work for Verizon Business Group. We have over 20 different billing systems. Now back to my customer lens. I've got thousands of different services with Verizon. What do I want? I want one digital bill. And this is why we must address this by radically changing the way that we're working. We know that our most valuable resources are people, okay? And it definitely takes an active community to accelerate any sort of change program. And this is why we formed our TechMob program. The vision was very much to empower all our engineers to take us to that next level, which some of you might have heard of, Verizon 2.0. So what is TechMob? Technology enablement, community mobilization. What does that mean? Well, to us, that means inner sourcing, evolutionary architecture, and chapters and guilds. You've probably seen this scenario before, 3 different application teams. There's some good news in here and some bad news. I've created a chatbot for our customers, fantastic. Yep, another chatbot, all good, delivering business value. 3rd crew, yeah, we've delivered customer value. Excellent news. Bad news around this, they're probably all reinventing the wheel. Different levels of quality, different levels of standards. When really, if you think about it, there's probably so much commonality there that if these guys were all talking, we could actually optimize what they're delivering. But let's think of it positively. Let's compound this at scale. It is a massive opportunity, and this is where our TechMob program comes in. So what was that first lever? It was inner sourcing. So what does that exactly mean? It's a bit of a mouthful. That is the industry standard definition, but essentially it's taking those best practices of open source, bring them inside, massive emphasis on collaboration, sharing, and self-governance. We're trying to get to a stage of build it once, build it right, and then reuse by many. So where do you start? We needed to adopt an industrial standard repo. And after much debate, we actually landed with GitLab, who are here today, so I need to go and see them. The best engineering practices are definitely when we're working with that bright, new, shiny stuff. We all love the bright, new, shiny stuff. So to kickstart our cloud migration, we actually created a cloud share repo. So teams, they could actually submit templates to standardize the management of our whole cloud infrastructure. Then the key thing was to actually create categorizations like compute or DB to aid discoverability and consumption of those templates. So what's impressive to date? We've created over 100 templates, which have been used by over 300 teams. We've also created a data leakage and data prevention runner against all our open repos, which basically locks us down against key security threats. Our vision is probably similar to what a lot of people have been saying today, that every pull request goes through that same set of templated services over and over again. We want to get to that situation of that is our table stakes. You do a pull request, has some level of quality in it, has some level of scanning, whether it be dynamic, static. We want that to be the table stakes. We want to have low fatigue development cycles. We want to have no drama releases into any environment. We joke about how sophisticated is your DevOps, how sophisticated is the pipeline. I think a good indicator is your release manager. Are they pulling their hair out as soon as you're releasing any code to any environment? Or are actually they pretty cool as a cucumber? They I know it's gone through the same set of templated services over and over again. And actually, the push to production is actually no different. We were set a challenge in IT to decrease costs by over $150 million over 3 years. So how are we going to do that? Well, we needed to limit the amount of commercial software we were using. We needed to reduce down those expensive support contracts and actually embrace both open and inner sourcing. We needed to move away from being those consumers to actually being the builders. So a great place to start is the telemetry of those software delivery pipelines I was just talking about. We needed something to give us a nice visualization, take us from that ideation phase all the way through the various delivery pipelines and actually into production. So what did we do? We actually partnered with Capital One on their Hygeia project so that we could standardize, we could streamline all this data that's being collected, then actually baseline it, and most importantly, track progress over time. And what's super is companies such as Walmart, American Airlines, they've actually joined us now within our Hygeia journey. And a real rallying call for me is sort of come to being, a new trend. Actually, we've now got enterprises collaborating together, partnering up. I think it's kind of cool that we kind of enter this sort of more mature world where we're actually doing enter-sourcing now. This enterprises collaborating together. I heard a phrase recently called frenemy, friend or enemy. Do you actually know who your partners are or your customers are today? Hope so. What about in 1 year's time? What about in 5 years' time? Previously, software vendors, they would come to us and say, we can solve all your problems. And look, they still do. But really, we do know best. We know what our problems are internally in the company. So why don't we actually go and collaborate out in the open and solve these problems together? So to date, we have over 20 Hygeia collectors. We have a great executive level console where we could track key trends and operational intelligence, which is what I'm showing up there. So what are the important metrics? DORA. Some of you may have had the pleasure of hearing Nicole Forsgren, who was at this conference previously, and we've adopted their scientific approach to metrics to drive our business outcomes. So what are the metrics, though? Everyone keeps saying DORA. Well, on the right-hand side, those are some of the key metrics that we're actually tracking. It's a bit of an eye test, but to me it's a bit of a holy trinity, delivering better, faster, and safer. If we think back to when we were talking a little bit earlier about the 8 currencies of 5G, you can't just have one thing to the detriment of the others. And that's the same here, that holy trinity. You can't just deliver software really, really quickly into production if you're just delivering crap. It's just going to come back at you. And what's the worst thing there? Customer confidence in you is going to be shot. They're going to be disappointed. We always need to remember that it's customer delight. That really has to be our North Star. So what was that next level of TechMob? It was actually evolutionary architecture or enterprise architecture. We've very much transformed sort of EA from being really sort of top-down, the gods, ivory towers. I think I heard that earlier on today. Thou pronouncing, you shall use this, thou shalt use that, and then walking off the job. We've now actually empowered the guys closest to the technology, the real subject matter experts. Let's actually make them accountable. You guys make the decisions. But how do we go about that in a transparent fashion? Well, we use GitLab. We create a GitLab workflow. So anyone can actually suggest a technology, a pattern, or a practice. And then let's go about this transparent, fact-based debate. Vote on it, comment on it, thumbs up, thumbs down, before we actually approve it in GitLab. So it's created a real buzz. This is like by the people, actually for the people. So to date, where do we stand? We've approved over 200 EDRs, 100 or so in progress. But look, new technologies hitting the market daily. So we're constantly re-evaluating our decisions. We needed that level of visibility, though, on these decision records. Openness, ability to measure. So there it is. There's a quadrant of our ThoughtWorks open source framework. Really nice visualization, very, very simple. So the community, they can search on all of those quadrants that we've got up there. They can filter on them, what we should be adopting, what we should be retiring. And the most important thing is why. It's always about the why. Look, it's not really top secret what we are adopting or retiring, but look, I'm not here to sell you tools, and just maybe what works for Verizon actually might not work for you guys. The net of all this is, look, we've given our community, we've given them a stage, we've given them a voice, now we just need to convince them all to use it. People are definitely at the heart of everything that we do. We've created 12 chapters, and these are really experts with similar technical passions, and they will come together to lead our transformational charge. We very much encourage this as positive behavior. We don't want to fall back into that same old problem that we saw earlier with the chatbots reinventing the wheel over and over again. We have to sort of step up from those, sometimes those short-term tactical technology decisions to actually sort of take a step back. Let's think more broadly. Let's think more strategically. So what actually do our chapters center on? Well, it's all those good practices, logging, monitoring, databases. But of course, everyone loves the shiny new stuff. And as the word cloud shows us, those big key items like AI, ML, analytics, that's where the real business impact's been found at the moment. So how do we drive membership? Well, we started a grassroots campaign. We were trying to seek out that best talent. We also tried to find our most sort of collaborative managers, you know, the guys that are always very interested in trying to sort of pally up and sort of drive the company forward. But what do our chapters actually do? I like to think of it around decisions, knowledge, and then solutions. We talked a little bit about the sort of EDR process, that enterprise decision record process. Our chapters are really fueling that technical direction. We've actually got an internal Stack Overflow. And again, our chapters, what we find is super active in there. So anyone familiar with Stack Overflow, their reputation point's very high, always asking questions, always giving answers. They're super busy in that area. The biggest one for me for the chapters is really solving those business use cases. So for instance, our RPA chapter, they created a digital network assistant, or a DNA bot. Over 100 skills. Saved over 40,000 hours last year for our network engineers and also our network operating centers while diagnosing network issues. And what's great is it also gave them an omni-channel experience. So they weren't actually just, oh, now I need to log in, I need this device. They can actually do it on their mobiles or cells. What's great is, and I probably use great a bit strongly, what we're really trying to do is all these pockets of knowledge, we're trying to actually join them all together. So this enterprise decision record, this tech radar, this Stack Overflow, our search engines, we need to somehow seamlessly join all those together so that then the information is very, very discoverable. I like to sort of think that we've moved very far from a scenario which I've seen in the past, maybe not a VP, but a storm in a room. Right, we've all got to go and use Cassandra. I've just signed a great big contract. Use it now. And the engineers sort of going, oh, what is Cassandra? Quick, let's try and look for it on the internet. Can't find anything. Oh, let's Google it. Still can't find anything. But they will find a way. Engineers, very, very resourceful people, what I found. They will figure it out how to do it. But that's, I think, completely missing the point. We need to understand why we should be using Cassandra, in which style of implementation we should be using. How do we actually install it correctly around the governance, around what Verizon's trying to do? But look, we have more work to do. Not all our chapter members, they're fully active. We've definitely seen a scenario of voluntold. And what that means is manager comes to you, would you like to volunteer to become part of this chapter? I think you're going to be really good at it. And the engineers, I don't know about that. And then he just sort of went, no, I'm telling you. So that's your and your voluntold. So, and then that guy, he's not going to be fully bought in. He's like, well, you're just telling me to do this. I don't understand the benefit. I don't get it. And you're just telling me to do it. So there's definitely some work we can do around that sort of scenario. We definitely run a lot of surveys. We're always trying to find out. We're always trying to get feedback about a whole process. We do see some sort of global differences. But one thing's for sure is that we definitely need to do more at a really top exec level to kind of recognize, reward, celebrate our engineers. And that's something that we're working more on. I think you'll probably be thinking, Verizon, they're spending quite a lot of time doing logging, measurements, metrics to track this progress towards outcomes. And that's completely right. That's key to us. We want to reward and recognize those leading behaviors because there's the ones that are actually going to drive that whole business value. The chapters, I kind of see them as the innovators, the early adopters. They're the ones providing the examples. They're the ones who will actually drag others through. We need to praise our engineers as well. Are they active? Are they contributing? We talked about that EDR process. We talked about stack rep points. Are they doing pull requests? Are they a trusted committer? Are they doing code reviews? And all of us, to be honest, we need to ask ourselves, are we going that extra mile? Are we building that muscle? Are we going out getting ourselves certified? Are we presenting ideas, maybe internally at brown bags, sharing that great information that we've got? Are we going to conferences like this one, coming back with those little golden nuggets of information and actually trying something out, fail fast? That's a good thing. Are we even going to external presentations and actually talking about the whole Verizon experience, sharing that back to the community to try and help people? We really must, I think, motivate ourselves to kind of go for those stretch goals. You do need to feel empowered by your management to do that. You know, they want us to get out of our comfort zone because they really know that that's the way that we'll become future ready. So how do we go about doing that? Well, one thing's for clear is we spent a lot of time with our HR and our comms department because we want to acknowledge and celebrate the transformation of all our engineers. As look, at the end of the day, these engineers, like all of you in the room, you're the guys that are actually creating these solutions to solve all our customer issues. And with that, I'm done. Thank you very much. I'm here for the panel. I'm more than happy to ask questions now. Catch me outside. I'm in Denmark for only another 4 hours or so, but really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Cheers.
We do have time for a few questions, if
Sure.
any come up. We have down here.
So my name is Sari, and I'm with Ificode Pragma. In one of the slides, you said you're trying to democratize technical decision-making, right?
Yes.
I mean, in my mind, democracy tends to crush minority voices, yes? And some of these minority voices might be quite innovative. So by doing this, by democratizing technical decision-making, don't you think you're crushing innovative minority voices in your organization?
Yeah, I kind of see the question. I mean, what we're trying to do is we're actually trying to give people that ability to express themselves. So, you know, if you've got a viewpoint, that's what I'm saying. This is all transparent. This is in GitLab. So we're treating it as code. So this is essentially decisions as code. So if you are one of those that's saying, actually, we need to go down this path, this is the technical direction I see, then you would create that enterprise decision record and then potentially would gain support through the community that actually that is a good idea. So we're definitely not trying to crush down, you know, thou shalt use this, because that's kind of where EA can end up if it's done in the wrong hands. So I don't know if that answers the question, but it's, yeah, we really want more voices like that because, as you say, there is a cutting edge of things, is that, you know, we don't all know the best. We are trying to figure this out as a company. That is no question. We've definitely moved away from, I need to be the smartest guy in the room, which is a phrase that the older management style would have probably agreed with. Now it's more, actually, this is the sum of the parts. It is greater than the whole.
Any more questions? No? Thank you, Jan Scott.
Pleasure.